Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs, et bienvenue. Mon nom est Perrin Beatty et je suis PDG de la Chambre de commerce du Canada. Je suis très content de vous accueillir ce matin au Musée canadien de l'Histoire et à cette scène magnifique. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation, whose presence here reaches back to time immemorial. The Algonquins are the customary keepers and defenders of the Ottawa River watershed and its tributaries. We honor their long history of welcoming many nations to this beautiful territory, and their culture and presence continue to nurture this land today. With me this morning are colleagues from across the tourism and travel sector and industry within Ottawa, including Su-Ling Chin, who's the president of and CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade, Susie Grinnell, who's the president of the Hotel Association of Canada, Joe Kowalski, who's the founder of Wilderness Tours, Ottawa River, Ross Meredith, who's the dual general manager of the Westin Ottawa and Delta Hotels by Marriott. He's multi-skilled. And Jamie Kwong, who's the executive director of the Ottawa Music Industry Coalition. Now, I've been around Ottawa a long time, and in Ottawa, when the city is gearing up for an election, everyone can feel it. And we all know what an election means. It means a pause on government activity. Right now, local businesses, particularly those in the travel and tourism sector, can't afford more delay. There's an urgent need for a reopening plan for the travel and tourism sector. Industry has been asking for a coherent plan for months. In ordinary times, the National Capital Region's attractions, which include the Parliament buildings, the museums, the Rideau Canal, or the concerts, the parks, the festival like the Festival de Montgolfière de Gatineau, our world-class hotels and restaurants, and so many others are magnets for tourists. In a normal year, Ottawa's tourism sector alone generates $2.2 billion in revenue. Last year, however, $1.4 billion was lost to COVID-19. Now, as we all know, summer plays a disproportionately important role for businesses in the travel and tourism sector. And for travel and tourism businesses in Ottawa and throughout the National Capital Region, this summer isn't shaping up to be much better than the summer of 2020. What's tragic here is that there's no need to inflict such damage on the local economy. Nearly 50% of Ottawa adults are now fully vaccinated, and some 70% have received one dose of the vaccine, making Ottawa one of the most vaccinated cities in the world. The results are obvious, and they're particularly encouraging. As of yesterday afternoon, Ottawa Public Health reported that in this market of over 1 million people, there were 43 known cases of COVID, only 2 of whom were in hospital, none in intensive care. Despite this success, however, there is still no clear plan for restarting the travel that anchors so many businesses across the city. Now, the Travel and Tourism Roundtable has been crisscrossing the country. Earlier this week, it made a stop in Niagara Falls. Businesses in Niagara Falls, like Ottawa, are struggling. In fact, in every city the Roundtable visits, the story is the same. Businesses, small, medium, and large, are hurting. And they're all struggling for the same reason: a lack of clarity on reopening both the economy and the border. We keep hearing that plans are coming, but it's now well into July, and the 2021 tourist season is fast disappearing. Businesses simply cannot afford to wait any longer. Now, last weekend, it was reported that the Canadian border would remain closed until 75% of Canadians were fully vaccinated. And as Canadians rush to get vaccinated in droves, breaking record after record, this goal seems ambitious but attainable. Now, I've spoken to business leaders from across the country, and many agree with this metric. Business owners aren't picky. What they ask for is a plan that they can rely on, a plan that allows for preparation, for rehiring and for retooling, a predictable path forward that creates confidence for the future. And they need lead time to prepare. Whether you're talking about a restaurant, the border, or a festival, it's much easier to shut it down than to reopen it, particularly if you're doing so in stages. Canada is quickly becoming one of the most vaccinated places on the planet. However, it remains one of the most restricted, particularly in Ontario. Canadians need clarity and certainty, which today we don't have. And the goalposts keep moving. It's time to pick a goal and to stick with it. We need also to start applying a business lens to decisions about COVID-19. At the start of the pandemic, our collective understanding of the virus was limited. Understandably, the strategy was to stay at home, flatten the curve, return to Canada, shut the borders. Everything made sense, particularly with the information that we had at the time. However, we've entered a new period of the COVID-19 pandemic, a period characterized by vaccines, better science, and an informed public. And we need to start making decisions that better reflect the time in which we are today. In Canada, this means a comprehensive and coherent plan to safely reopen our economy, a plan to reopen the Canada-US border to fully vaccinated individuals, because COVID doesn't recognize your passport, but it certainly does recognize your vaccine, and a clear vaccination certification process to support the recovery of the industry and of the Canadian economy. We need that plan today, not after an election, and it needs to be based on medical science, not political science. Canadians by the tens of millions are doing their part. What we ask is that our leaders do theirs. And now I'm pleased to pass the microphone to my colleague Su-Ling Ching, who is the President and CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade. Su-Ling.
Thank you, Perrin, for your leadership always, but particularly during these last months, assisting decision makers to implement important next steps to ensure that our economy thrives. I'm honored to stand beside you. Thank you to everyone who is with us today to participate in this critically important conversation about the impact of travel and tourism on the economy and the future of the nation's capital. It's really pretty simple. The travel and tourism sector is a top driver for the economy in the Ottawa region. As the capital of Canada, people from every corner of the world come to Ottawa to experience the diversity and essence of our country, Canada, in one city. We have so much to offer: world-class dining, incredible attractions that bring our country's past to life through museums, galleries, monuments, and of course, Parliament Hill. Our arts and culture scene, professional sport teams, world-class festivals, and outdoor experiences all make Ottawa a global destination. Furthermore, what makes Ottawa a great place to visit directly correlates to what makes Ottawa a great place to live, work, invest, and study. Tourism is the front door to all forms of economic development. When people come to Ottawa for leisure, a sporting event, a business conference, they get firsthand experience of the endless possibilities of our global iconic city. And this is a top strategy for our future growth. Businesses in the tourism sector, hotels, restaurants, retail, attractions, events, and personal services all provide critical cultural and economic value to Ottawa, to our community, residents, and visitors. Since the beginning of the pandemic, they have been on the front line, bearing the brunt of our decisions to reduce the spread of COVID. They have been cooperative, innovative, resilient, but they are fatigued. For the second year in a row, these establishments, big and small, are seriously struggling. They are disproportionately disadvantaged compared to businesses across Canada and around the world. Can you even imagine owning a business knowing that more than half of your customers are simply not allowed to come to your front door. It is way past time for this to change. Ottawa is one of the most vaccinated places in the world, but our lockdown rules remain the strictest in North America and possibly the world. This simply does not make sense, and it is untenable when Ottawa businesses are struggling to keep the lights on. Fully vaccinated people should be able to visit Ottawa this summer. Full stop. Whether you're Canadian, Danish, or Colombian, if you are fully vaccinated, you should be welcome in our country. Foreign travel fuels Ottawa's economy in the summer, but the tap remains completely turned off. Canada Day is already passed. The summer is officially upon us. What's missing? Our visitors, our prospective conference and event planners, our potential business investors, and our future students. Ottawa summers are stunning. This is the time that we get the majority of leisure travelers. However, it is a very short season. For the local economy, it is critical to optimize this time of year. One day in the summer can equal 1 week's worth of business in the winter, and it is quickly slipping away. Ottawa businesses have acted responsibly. They have complied with evidence-based recommendations and protocols from our own health officials. They have invested significantly to ensure that their customers and our visitors are safe. They deserve clear communication, a solid plan, and our steadfast support. We need the green light to reopen so we can recover and rebound before it is too late. The Ottawa Board of Trade is calling on the federal government to publish a comprehensive reopening plan for international and domestic travel, particularly around fully vaccinated foreign nationals visiting Canada. We need it now, and we cannot wait. Every day that passes, we are losing business and consumer confidence. We are missing domestic and international opportunities that will shape our economy and our health for many years to come. And most importantly, we are jeopardizing our ability to reach our full potential as the best capital city in the world. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity. Next, please welcome Susie Grenell, President of the Hotel Association of Canada.
Merci, Souling. Les Canadiens et nos entreprises ont fait leur part au cours des dernières années pour assurer la sécurité des autres. Des sacrifices importants ont été faits. Canadians and Canadian businesses have done their part over the last year and a half to keep each other safe. Significant sacrifices have been made. We stayed home. We got vaccinated. We adopted and obeyed countless public health measures. And from a hotel industry perspective, we turned hotels into quarantine facilities and places for frontline workers to self-isolate and protect their families. We offered shelter to the vulnerable, and we assisted the government to put restrictive travel measures in place with a 3-day hotel quarantine program. As a result of all of our collective efforts and sacrifices, we are now coming out the other side. Our vaccination rates are climbing, and we are logging some of the lowest case counts since the onset of the pandemic. And we have scientific evidence that vaccines are working. We also have scientific evidence from the government's own expert panel suggesting that it is safe to travel without needing to quarantine if an individual is double vaccinated. And yet here we stand, with borders closed to double vaccinated travelers from abroad who want to come and visit their families, enjoy our beautiful Canadian summer, and support our tourism communities. Why are we discriminating between double vaccinated Americans and double vaccinated Canadians returning from America? COVID doesn't check your passport at the border. Today we are asking the federal government to open the border and lay out their plan to facilitate travel into Canada. What we have today encourages Canadians to go elsewhere and spend their savings, but it does not allow for reciprocal access to Canada. We are closed for business. for the second summer in a row. This continued protectionist policy is no longer necessary or medically required. 80% of Canadian tourism revenue comes in during 20% of the time. July through Labor Day is disproportionately important to our sector. The large number of visitors to Canada during our summer months sustains our hospitality and tourism operators throughout the slow winter season. If this is lost again, we will be at risk of a collapse in the tourism and hospitality sectors. We will lose anchor businesses like hotels. We will lose our competitive advantage, and Canada could be left behind. It is time for the federal government to heed the advice of the COVID-19 Testing and Screening Expert Advisory Panel and to provide clear, timely, and safe guidance on reopening Canada for travel and reopening the Canada-US border. The science supports it, and we are ready to welcome international visitors safely. Thank you. I will now pass the microphone to Joe Kowalski, founder of Wilderness Tours, Ottawa River. Joe?
Thank you, Susie. I could not agree more with the previous speakers. They all talked about the carnage and the devastation to our tourism industry, our hospitality industry. I come here today as the poster child. No one has suffered more than our organization and our industry. So I'm the founder of Wilderness Tours. We also have evolved we do Ottawa City rafting right here in the city. We have Ottawa Kayak School, which has hosted many world championships. We do jet boating in Montreal under the name Lachine Rapids Tours. And we also do jet boating in Niagara Falls, Ontario, and Niagara Falls, New York. Last year, our losses were $7 million, and which hurts. It will take us years to recover. We have had to endure watching our colleagues, at least we're still in business. Many of our colleagues operating business for decades are now out of business, and they will probably never open. We have had to endure the beer store being essential and open, LCBO being essential and open, but nature is closed. I mean, it's total insanity. And right now, we're operating, we have a world-famous kayak program for young people called Keeners. We are operating that program right now at full capacity in West Virginia, and not on the Ottawa River. And the only thing that is saving us with our jet boating in Niagara Falls is that we operate on both sides of the river. In Lewiston, New York, our headquarters, the bars are open, the restaurants are open, Art Park is open, everything is open, our jet boating is open, and when we return home to Canada at the end of the day, it's the night of the living dead. And there's just no excuse for it. It's just, it's a travesty. And so prior to being in the tourism business, I served 4 years in the military, having reached the rank of captain. So I know what leadership is all about. I don't think we have a COVID crisis. I think we have a leadership crisis. When COVID hit, myself and my 3 partners, we took ourselves off the payroll so that we did not have to lay off any of our staff. The 3 of us have not had a paycheck since March of 2020. My challenge is to our elected leaders and the senior bureaucrats who make these rules. Take yourself off the payroll. Stop the payroll, stop your perks, stop your pensions, because I can tell you that many Canadians have had to do the same thing and are still doing it. My challenge is to our Prime Minister. Tear down that international border wall and let fully vaccinated Americans and international travelers come to Canada and enhance our country with their presence and their tourism dollars. Thank you. I want to introduce my good friend Ross Meredith. As an aside, Ross is the GM of the Westin and now the Delta. Both my children are longtime national kayak team members, and they learned to swim at the Westin.
Thank you, Joe, and appreciate the passionate speech and storytelling there. And thank you, Perrin, for your leadership throughout this time as well and your opening remarks. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak about the state of the hotel industry here in the National Capital Region and somewhat about across Canada. Let's be completely honest. It is this industry has been totally devastated by COVID. And although we're seeing and thrilled to see some short-term pickup on some of our leisure and resort markets throughout Canada, we need to acknowledge that Canada does not have a lot of palm trees or a lot of sunny beaches. So the vast majority of the hotel inventory is located in major cities and often close to or connected to convention center facilities. This sector remains completely impacted and extremely impacted. Occupancy levels ranging from 0, with hotels still closed from 17 months ago, to the low percentage numbers. And the recovery time for more normal occupancy levels remains many months away. Hotel associates are waiting to come back to work. We have associates with us that have been with us for 30 years of service and 30 years of seniority who remain at home today waiting for a return due to lack of work. How could they ever imagined a day that would occur? Their lives have been materially impacted, and we need to end this as soon as we can. Hotel owners have continued to pay civic property taxes, utility bills, maintenance costs, sales and marketing fees, wages, and the list goes on, for the last 17 months, and are dreaming for a return time to normal. They've been using funds set aside for capital investments, for additions, for improvements, for renovations, meant to improve their assets and improve the hotel industry assets across Canada. But they've been using those funds just to keep the doors open. But I can say without hesitation that our industry operates with a glass half full mentality. We love what we do. We love supporting our guests. We love welcoming our associates. And we love supporting our conference and events activities that happen in our hotels. But winter is coming. And along with that, we will see significant financial pressure as the short-lived summer leisure activity will be gone. So our ask today is not to cut us loose at this very important time. We need continued and additional government support and programming to remain a viable long-term hotel industry. We trust and ask that all levels of government will recognize and support our very legitimate cry for help as we move into what we all believe will be the final stage of the recovery. Thank you very much, and I'm pleased to welcome Jamie Kwong, Executive Director of the Ottawa Music Industry Coalition. Welcome, Jamie. Thank you. Thank you.
Bonjour tout le monde. Hi, so I represent the Ottawa Music Industry Coalition, which is made up of artists, music industry folks, venues, festivals, and we all work together to create a thriving music economy in Ottawa. Like my colleagues here in tourism, we have had a devastating loss in our city alone, just in the music industry. In a report done by the City of Ottawa last year, in the arts, culture, and heritage sector alone, over $220 million was lost in our sector. And for musicians, they were the hardest hit within those categories, losing over $28 million. It is at this time in our city, just like many other cities across the nation, that it's alive with festivals, with music, with people gathering together. And for the second year in a row, our city is quiet. Our musicians aren't down by this, but they're out, they're creating music, and they are ready to bring it back to the concerts for the pleasure of everybody. And so, unlike our American neighbors to the south, we're still in limbo, trying to figure out when and how to expect our music venues to open. And when they finally do open up, how many can we expect? The lack of predictability has caused confusion and it's worrisome that the government does not understand the nature of our industry. Music venues have to book acts often a year to 18 months in advance, and often it is not a profitable venue to operate at a partial capacity. Without a clear plan in place for reopening and the absence of international travelers, it could take another year or longer for our industry to rebound. This has knock-on effects for our entire economy, with reduced support for local businesses to job losses. By now, we expect the government to have a clear plan. Hundreds of live music venues across the country have closed their doors permanently. In Ottawa, we have lost a few, and they are such important assets in the music industry in that they provide platforms to our local musicians who are future potential Juno Award-winning artists. So this is devastating for our local economy. So in addition to the venues, our artists, our industry workers are suffering. They cannot make a living wage without performing and are not able to plan for the future. They have turned to social media outlets. They've tried to be creative with streaming, but that is so different from a live music concert. A thriving music industry is crucial to Ottawa's and Canada's post-pandemic recovery. In fact, in a report commissioned by our coalition right before the pandemic, it was estimated that consumers spend approximately $138 million annually to attend live music shows, and that industry's contribution to Ottawa's GDP is over $150 million overall. If we want to build back better, we cannot do it without a clear plan, and we cannot do it without the music industry. So to enable all businesses to thrive and invest in our local creative talent, we need a clear plan now. I would like to now pass the microphone on to Perrin, who will answer, and everyone's here to answer any questions people might have.
And I think we're going to start with if we have any questions from the journalists and reporters in person, and then we'll move to the phone. Are there any questions from people in here? No? Okay, and with that, I will pass the microphone over to the operator.
Your first question comes from Caroline Simpson at the freelance journalist. Caroline, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. Are you specifically concerned that reopening the Canadian-U.S. border will be delayed because of the election?
We're very much concerned that when we get into an election, governments tend to shut down, and they don't want to make decisions that are profound during the course of an election campaign. And that's why it's very important then that we get clarity now in terms of what the plan is. In addition to that, as I mentioned in my remarks, what we need is to ensure that there's lead time. If you talk to Joe, or if you talk to Ross or any of my other colleagues here, they'll tell you that it's not like throwing a switch, that today it's off, tomorrow you throw the switch and it's on. It takes literally weeks and potentially months to be able to get an operation up and running again. If we wait until later, we run the risk of losing all of the summer tourist season, and that would be tragic.
No follow-up.
Ladies and gentlemen, should you have any questions, please press star 1.
Just while we're waiting, perhaps I can just comment, Joe, particularly about you. When I spoke about statistics, about the importance of the sector, the number of jobs, and so on. What you did in your remarks was to demonstrate it's not statistics. It's about people. It's about their dreams, their investments, their businesses, their hopes, their future. And this, at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, which is what's absolutely critical here. It's about people and ensuring that we can provide for them a future in which there's hope and opportunity. And it's why we have to act now. Please.
If I may add, and Ross, you can attest to this as well, being an executive with Ottawa Tourism, it's not just about saving our season and supporting operators like Joe, that globally, event planners are making their decision now for the next, 3 to 5 years, Ross? And so those decisions will impact our economy for decades. Because once they make a decision on where to go, that's where they will lean to go. And that is future influx of revenue for Ottawa that will be lost to us.
Absolutely. Joe?
Your next question comes from Jennifer Brown as a freelance journalist.
Just one second,
Jennifer,
sorry.
please go ahead.
Joe had a comment to add to that.
Yes, if I might add, from someone who's on the front lines of the tourism industry, what's been frustrating and infuriating is being on the government-regulated yo-yo, not knowing if you're going to be open, when you're going to be open, if you're going to be open. And they would make these decisions on a Thursday to open it Friday at midnight. I mean, it's just the people that are making these decisions do not have a clue how the real world works. And that was my challenge. Take yourself off the payroll, off the perks, off the pensions, and you'll find out very quickly how the real world works.
Okay, there was another question?
Yes, from Jennifer Brown. Please go ahead.
Yeah.
Hi.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to get your thoughts on the policy for children. Canada is one of the only countries where children are forced to quarantine. What are your thoughts on that? Maybe if Perrin could answer.
The policy is incomprehensible to me. I've talked to parents about the challenge for them. It's fine to say that if you're doubly vaccinated, you won't have to quarantine when you come home. But if you are required to look after children who are 8 or 10 years of age, who are not able to, under the regulations, to be vaccinated, it is the same thing as having yourself locked up during that period. It makes no sense. Most other countries which have brought in regulations that reflect the fact that people have been doubly vaccinated, treat the children in exactly the same way as the parents. They say if the parents have been doubly vaccinated, they recognize the fact that the children under law are not allowed to be vaccinated. As a consequence, then, they do not require them to be isolated during that period after arriving in the country. That's what Canada should be doing as well. It's highly unlikely that your 8-year-old daughter is Typhoid Mary. It's far more likely that the risk is coming from other areas.
Follow-up?
No, thank you.
There are no more questions at this time. You may proceed.
Okay, I think that wraps the press conference. If I could just ask all the participants when we're finished to do a photo outdoors.
I'd like to just get a picture of all you guys outside.
Okay, gladly. Yep. Thank you all very, very much.